Are you paying too much in taxes? Elevated Tax and Accounting is a firm that specializes in tax planning and strategy to minimize your tax bill. Elevated Tax consult with you on tax strategy throughout the year, so no more waiting until the end of the year and hoping for the best. As a business owner, you know your sole focus should be spent working on your business, not in it. Outsourcing gives you the time to concentrate on the core reasons you started your company, to create and innovate a top-tier product and generate profits. Elevated Tax and Accounting, elevating you and your business with a modern professional touch.
Driving along on the highway and you've been hit by a semi-truck. Now what do? You call your Montana attorneys, Ryan and Miller. We have the expertise to help guide you along in these specific types of accidents. So these are the 3 steps that you need to follow. Number 1, make sure that the police are called and that there is a report of the accident. Second, make sure that you're getting the medical attention that you need and following up with your doctor. Third, do not talk to an insurance company until you've talked to an attorney. They are not going to help you protect your rights, and you want to make sure that you know all that you're entitled to. Contact an attorney today by clicking the link below.
Week's breakdown, as well as Nuanez now. Appreciate you for tuning in. We're joined now by Brent Vigen, the head coach of the Montana State Bobcats. Coach, we'll get right into it. Last week, I got a chance to see you for a minute. A busy Friday for you guys. So take us through from a head coaching perspective, because you got to sort of celebrate the ending of an era there with Tommy Mellott and Brody Grebe and Marcus Weir in their last athletic event, really, as Bobcats. But also you had a whole bunch of young guys on campus that are potential Bobcats as well, and you're in the midst of spring ball too. So sort of the past, present, and future all on display for Montana State last week.
Yeah, it was a busy day, and it ended with we had the seniors out for a dinner, and when I spoke to them at the end, I said, days like this, it's kind of the circle of life with a football program, and I think the cool thing was, I told those guys, those seniors, we could speak to their impact that they had, on this program, and how they left it a better place than they found it. The examples they set, et cetera. And, I think for those guys, they really value that. And that's cool. That's great. The guys value the impact that they had on a program. And I think for those guys, the 7 that participated, then plus Cleveland Thomas, I thought they represented well. And, I'm hopeful that more of them than not get an opportunity to play at the next level.
You've seen many a man that has competed in your various programs over your career go on to the NFL. In your estimation, what does it take? It's obviously great athleticism, but there's so much more to it than that. So what are the things that go into making an NFL player? And what do you think gives some of those guys that participated last week a shot?
Well, you have to have elite physical traits. It doesn't need to mean everything needs to be elite. A guy like Tommy doesn't have elite height by any means and all that, but he's got some, elite explosion and movement and intelligence. I look at Marcus. I think Marcus has, a few things, arm length and hand size that they question, but boy, he had an explosive day, and he's got, years and years of film where he's a dominant player. Brody, maybe not as tall as they'd want, and he's got arm length challenges too, but an explosive athlete that just like Marcus can move. And, I think, beyond that, they really want it. I think there's plenty of talented guys out there at all levels, and there's plenty of guys that have all kinds of talent that don't make it. And there's all kinds of stories of, the undrafted guy from the small school that surpasses all expectations. And I do think that that belief in oneself, that work ethic, that's not something all of a sudden you can learn, when you're 22, 23. There's plenty of guys that I suppose through their college years could get by on, elite talent, elite size, elite strength, whatever. But if you don't have that burning desire to stay with it, to continue to become better beyond college, it's going to be tough.
One of the great conversation points around Montana over the last week then is Tommy Mellott, an NFL athlete, there's no question about it. Where does he play at the next level? The number one comment I got from the scouts that was so interesting, they said, hey, the most impressive thing this guy did today was he went through the whole battery of tests and then also did all the quarterback drills and also all the running back drills and also all the wide receiver drills, and they return punts, and he's not even tired. And Coach Herron, after I talked to him, he said, well, that's just how he is. He doesn't really get tired. That's one of his great skills is his physical endurance. But what do you see Tommy Mellott as at the next level?
Well, I think it is going to be a combo. From what I can gather, with the structure of an NFL roster, to get a guy on your roster that can wear a few different hats, there's so much value in that. So, is that main position what he might go down in the roster? Is that as a wide receiver? That would seem like that's the most prevalent as far as the thought out there. But then, what does that overlap into special teams? Beyond maybe being a returner, is he a guy that can be, a coverage guy? And then, flip it back to offense. Is there, a creative enough offensive mind, and they're all over the NFL that can find ways to get the ball in his hands differently and have his passing ability be a true threat. So, I not that it's absolutely sky's the limit, but I do think there's some different opportunities within different organizations, just how they would see him, and hopefully, the most creative one picks him, I guess, because he's not going to let anything limit him. And if he's tasked to do something like he was that day, I mean, he's going to do it all and then some. And all that being said, out of that workout, I think he still feels like he needs to get into football shape. I know he commented that on Friday, so I don't even know what that looks like beyond what he just demonstrated that day. So unique individual, and he's really going after this, and he's at the same time willing to let's say work with an organization, however that needs to look. He's not stubborn in this deal, like some might be. He's, I think he knows he can play football, and just let him know what that means, and he'll go after it.
Is a will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the Montana Club.
Brent Vigen joining us, Montana State head football coach. When it comes to the guys that were sort of future Bobcats, I know you can't comment on specific recruits, but how do you think your recruiting message has evolved and changed over these last couple of years? Because now when you bring the guys in, hey, you can show them two Big Sky Conference banners. You can, say, hey, we have these many wins and playoff runs and et cetera, et cetera. So how has the recruiting pitch evolved for when you bring young guys to campus?
Well, I think it's certainly developed. It starts out and you're selling what you think it can be. You're certainly selling a rich history here. You're selling your own experiences. The collective force that our coaching staff would have brought back in those early times. But now you are, primarily selling, this 4-year stretch. What we've been able to do. How the view of Montana State football, I hope, has continued to develop. Certainly our facilities and how that piece has continued to grow. It's still about what we want it to be moving forward, but I think we can sell what these last 4 years in particular have looked like. And, I think we can make it maybe even more relative to each individual kid by being able to say, hey, we think you could be the next whoever to some degree. And I think that's helpful as the process goes along. But again, it's still, about what we want to do moving forward and why we're going to be able to do that as much as what we've been able to do the last 4 years.
We were talking about this exact concept, especially when it comes to guys that are from Montana. I know part of this is sort of out of your control. Can guys handle the concept of star power, right? But, being sort of the face of programs. But you've had this run, especially those last couple of years, with guys that have been as well known as anybody that has come out of the state of Montana in a long time. I mean, Troy Anderson and Tommy Mellott, sort of the leaders in the clubhouse, but Brody Gribby certainly too has been sort of a star guy since he was a young player. So do you think that resonates with young guys in Montana?
I sure hope so. it's not that guys from our state will get looked at from different schools across the country. I know it's happening. But ideally there is this sense of, hey, I would love to stay, here in Montana. I'd love to be the next Troy Anderson, Tommy Millott, Brody Greeby, Marcus Weir, whoever that might be. And, if that's a responsibility that some guys crave, I think just being able to represent your hometown within Montana, your state, I think there's real value, and it's maybe not for everybody, but I think for some guys that's a real popular thought and a real desirable thing. And ultimately to play your college ball, within your home state, we hope that's a real attractive piece to what they're looking for. And it's, beyond just being able to be close to home, it's who you're representing. It's your hometown, it's your family, it's your high school, it's all those things. And, you leave the state, a lot of those feelings, maybe those benefits go away.
So one of the biggest questions about your program in general is sort of turning the page from those guys that we watched perform last Friday. So now that you've been in spring ball a couple weeks, how has that gone? Who are some of the guys that maybe have emerged as potential leaders for the 2025 Bobcats?
Yeah, we're going through a phase where we're midpoint. We're practice 8 tomorrow. I think we're still learning about this team, and we have a lot of younger players that have seen the field some, and they're developing, and that's what we're about. And I've liked at least the way that the first half of spring ball has gone in that regard. On the leadership side, that is a void was created by so many of those seniors, and not only them being big time leaders last year, but maybe big time leaders over the last 2-3 years. So in that void, I think we've definitely seen some guys emerge. I know offensively, Titan Fleischman, he's going on his 5th year. He'll still just be a junior, but had a great year last year. He's overcome a lot to get to that point. Really like what he's brought to the table. I know flipping that over on the defensive side, Paul Brott has played a key role. And, I think Paul has really emerged on that defensive side as a guy that I know we can count on, and he sees it the right way. And then, some non-seniors, whether it's Taco Dollar, Adam Jones, Zach Cruz, I know those are all guys that I think have those leadership capabilities within them. Kenny Idens is another senior I know that has continued to mature and grow into what he's become. So, saying that, that group is guys that have been on the field, several Montanans in that group. And, so they're definitely coming along, and that's not the end of that group. So I like the way that looks. And, I think there's some good guys that we can lean on.
Certainly, as you've mentioned a lot this offseason already, success brings opportunity for a lot of guys in your business, in the coaching business. And you did have some staff members get jobs, especially at the FBS level. So with this transition in the staff, how has it gone so far? And what have you thought of the way that some of the new coaches have fit in?
Well, I've been pleased. That's probably, from an evaluation perspective on my end, that's been as big a part of these first couple of weeks as anything. You're looking at relationship building. You're looking at, even just how within a practice guys, are organized, and the drills they put guys through, how they react to, I suppose the successes and failures, and then, taking it into the meeting room and analyzing the film. What do they see? And, how does that translate? And I felt really good about the 4 guys that we've added. I know we have, 3 new coaches on offense. So that's been a, more of an adjustment on that side of the ball, headed up by Pete Sturbick. And, I've liked what, Pete's brought to the table, having been a head coach, having been a play caller for some time, really building off his experience, but then him really adapting to Montana State at the same time. I know on the defensive side, a little bit different with Sean Hauga going into that coordinator role, but different at the same time. And, I've appreciated how he's taken on that role. And then, how guys like Jody Owens, Brian Shepard, and Nick John Baptiste have also adjusted into greater roles too. So, this coaching staff, I think, is hungry. I think it's, one that really values being here. And, I know we got a bunch of work to do yet, but have been pleased with it so far.
Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by the Bobcat Collective at Montana State. The Bobcat Collective is the NIL collective that serves Montana State University student athletes. The collective is partnered with Montana State to connect fans, alumni, businesses, and local nonprofits with Montana State student athletes. Opportunities through the collective allow student athletes to earn compensation while serving the greater Montana State University community. Sign up now for memberships and enjoy automatic entry into raffles for free tickets while supporting the bright minds at Montana State. They have multiple different membership tiers, and you can also be a one-time supporter, and you can also business partner or corporate supporter. Visit bobcatcollective.com for more.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
I know talking to Coach Howe, he was so pleased with what Jody's been able to do at the linebacker spot. What your impression's been of him so far?
Well, that's the reason we made that move is rather than go outside and bring a linebackers coach in, I was like, okay, I think we got as good a linebacker coach as we could possibly get right here on staff. And, Jody had coached the safeties 1 year prior, but he'd been a linebackers coach other than that. And that's obviously the position he played. So, I felt like moving him into that critical position was important to this transition. Our linebackers are our quarterbacks of the defense. They're the ones that really truly need to know what everyone else is doing, get everybody else lined up, communicate all those things. And, I think Jody's done a really good job in his own way of continuing to bring that group along. I know we have some experience with Neil Daly and Bryce Grebe, but we have to bring that group along and find the next wave of guys. And, those guys have meshed well with him and vice versa. And, I think halfway in, pleased with the way that looks. And, I think Jody's he's Bobcat through and through. So to elevate him and, give him more responsibilities, also the assistant head coach has been it was an easy decision and one that I feel really good about.
On the offensive line, there's always so much talk about continuity amongst the unit. And then you've had continuity amongst the coaches too, but then you had a transition when Al Johnson took over that unit. Now another one to a even more young coach with Matt Smith. So how have those guys reacted to that? And also, is there an element where having a young guy in the room that is sort of cutting his teeth and is hungry can help out that group since they've been under such veteran and sort of expert type leadership from their position coach in recent years?
Yeah, I think so. I think Matt Smith's a little bit of an old soul. He's wise beyond his years, I guess, but he is different. And that was one thing as I was going through the process of hiring a new offensive line coach. I was okay going in a different direction, not going out there and trying to find necessarily the next Al Johnson. Al's, he did a great job for us, and he is one unique individual. And at the time we hired him, I felt like he was the best fit. And, and as we went through this process of replacing him, ultimately I felt like, Matt was the best fit, and that's the best fit for those guys, but it's also the best fit in that room of coaches too. Pete's experience and Matt's youth and hunger and some of those things, I think, provided a really good mix. And I think they both recognize too that, okay, Montana State's had a lot of success on offense, and, let's both put our egos aside and lean into what has been, done here, whether that's the previous coordinators, Housewright and Walker, the previous O-line coaches, Armstrong and Johnson, the foundation that they've laid. So, it's been good. And I think, Matt, like I said, is wise beyond his years. And it was really Brian Armstrong having a couple conversations with him that made me recognize that. I wasn't necessarily going out there trying to hire a young coach by any means. I wanted to hire the best coach, the best fit. And, Brian, spoke to his experience with Matt and, I think really at least let me take a little harder look at him. And, we had a chance to chat a couple times and do an interview and really felt good about it. And, a few months into it, I think the same and then some.
Plenty of time to talk about personnel throughout the rest of this spring ball, and especially after the spring game when I get to see a little bit more. But just 2 personnel questions for you, and then I'll let you go. When it comes to the offensive line, to me, center is the spot where I'm looking at because you had such stability at that spot, both with Justice Perkins and Cole Sandeman. You guys have had an all-league center for all 4 of your seasons there so far at Montana State. So how's that position coming along, and who are some of the primary candidates to be your main center?
Well, I'd say it's coming along at best. We started the spring with, a couple different thoughts in mind. The guys that had been at that position, Aiden Kaplan and Zach Nyland, were on the, basically on the outside looking in last year of playing time, but both were in that backup role. And then you look at, okay, who are some other guys that have played, in particular looking at the guys that split the time at left guard last year and Burke Mastel and JT Reed. I think we have to be able to lean into a couple of those guys, not 4. That was kind of the charge I gave Matt from the start. I think Burke Mastel does have experience playing center back at the high school ranks. Didn't finish there, but started there back at Red Lodge. So like the thought of Burke. I know JT has snapped the ball from time to time while he's been here, especially on the practice side of it. And then the younger 2 guys have both been centers. So I think as we finish spring, I think we'll have that narrowed. I know Aiden had an ankle right at the beginning of spring, so that has slowed his track down. And Burke's been out with a lingering injury from the season, which won't keep him out of the season, but has kept him out. So very much a work in progress. But I think the thought of a guy like Burke in particular as a junior with some experience on the back end, in the early part of his football career, I think I do like that idea. We just have to get to that point.
And then last one for you. I want to know about quarterbacks, but I specifically want to know about Ritter Ward, who's a young guy that's on campus, graduated early. So how's he been? How's he looked? And what else can you tell us about the quarterback position?
Well, progress for sure. I know, starting at the top, Chance Wilson, I think through the course of the fall had some opportunity in games. And ultimately, I think we felt like, if Tommy were to go down, this would have been the first maybe third of the season. He was the next man up. So being that next man up, even though he didn't actually have to execute upon that, there's still something that goes along with that. And I think Chance, from a maturity perspective, from an understanding perspective, is, picked up where he left off, so to speak. And he's had a good first 7 practices. Patrick Duchesne, I think continues to get better. And he was one that, he held for us last year. So he was out there every game in that capacity, but didn't get a quarterback rep, but ran our scout team. And I think has continued to grow. And right now we have the 3 with the move of Jordan Reed to receiver. And the next one is River. And, River was he's a unique case of he's a 24 grad who, graduated early that year to enroll, and it didn't happen for him. He's basically trained. He had some intention of maybe going to prep school last fall, and we signed him before that. So, he's had this gap year essentially in 24 where he played as a high school senior in the fall of 23. I think so. There's a little bit of rust, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. When you haven't played 11 on 11 football, you've been throwing it and training and all that stuff. That's fine. But quarterback is still about playing with 21 other guys out there. So he's a real eager guy. He is a talented guy. And, like this Saturday, we scrimmaged for the first time. That'll be a big tell for where he's at, where the whole group is at. I know we're excited to bring Justin Lamson into the mix this summer. And, he does have more experience certainly than the rest of them combined do, playing college football. So we'll continue to let this situation play out. But I think between Chance, Patrick, and River, they've all done some good things thus far. But like this first scrimmage come Friday night will be pretty dang telling.
Montana State hosts their annual spring game on April 26th. We'll be on hand for that one, and we'll have plenty of spring ball coverage for you here, SkylineSportsMT.com, as well as on Nuanez now on ESPN Radio. Coach, thanks so much for the time. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Go Cats.
Cash One Pawn has the most extensive inventory of any pawn shop in western Montana. Whether you're in the market for firearms, power tools, bows, video game consoles, or sunglasses, Cash One Pawn has the best deals around. And now Cash One Pawn gives you the ability to shop online from anywhere. Make CashOnePawn.com part of your shopping habits. Also make sure to download the Cash One Pawn app. Cash One Pawn, Missoula's premier pawn shop located on Roller Coaster Road on the way to the Y.